Alrighty, we are live. Welcome to this True Restoration live stream. Thank you for your patience. We were going to have Stephen Heiner here, but I think Paul he's dogged us a bit here. He's not here, so no, obviously something has probably come up, and it is what it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue talking about careers and business. Both Paul and I have more experience. I've got a bit of experience in a side business. But really, we've got more experience working in, I guess, the full-time role, W-2 employee, I think they call it in the States. Stephen Heiner has a lot of experience in the business side. So we'll see if he is able to join us because he will be able to talk really well about that. If not, we'll talk about what we can. So, Paul, last show, we had to end it at a certain time. You had some more thoughts, I guess, around careers. So I'm going to throw this to you and, yeah, kick it off.
Yeah, I'm just going to rapid fire some ideas on college. So definitely, your education is really important and something to invest in. And college is certainly a way that you can go to do that, to develop the skills and get the degrees to help your career. There's certainly a lot of different things you can branch into when you're considering this. One, just being able to have that independence and be able to support yourself, whether you're male or female. Things can go drastically wrong from spouse die, like any scenario can come up. You should be able to support yourself and not have to live with the family. And that's certainly one way that you can achieve it, especially nowadays. But there are, a lot of different considerations that I'll try to rapid fire and feel free to jump in whenever. First thing is the advice that I got from Bishop Zoe at the time was no campus life and sacraments. So just trying to go to confession and communion. And I would say also pray your rosary daily, and then not live on campus, going to completely immersed in the campus life. That is really dangerous, but there's nothing wrong with going to the classes to get the degree in general. There's obviously different circumstances, and then obviously you need to get aim towards a career that can support you, get you a job that can support you in the long term. And it's changing, so you have to do a little bit of research into what you want to do, what the field will be like in 4 years when you graduate, etc. So yeah, it's just sacraments, prayer, and no campus life. That you could do clubs if you wanted to. I know Father McKenna did a juggling club when he was there to learn how to juggle, stuff like that. But not like in a frat in America, stuff like that. And then make sure you have a means towards a goal. The goal that you're going for is to be able to support yourself, family, and all of that good stuff. And so you have to get a career path that goes towards it. So there's some research. You should experience some things beforehand, maybe that shadow sessions, consulting people in the field that you're trying to get into, like, hey, what does this look like? What about this career path? Get some type of mentorship in the field.
Right. And just on that, Paul, like a lot of people who are, let's say, not a business owner, but just working, in a field that you might want to consider, I can almost guarantee that if you just went onto LinkedIn, found people in the roles that you might want to get, like you might want to aspire to in the short and or long term, and you send them a message, if they check their account, some people don't as much, but some people do, I can almost guarantee you'll get some replies, and they would probably even be happy to have a phone chat. People also like to give their advice, so I think that's something that I would recommend doing as well. Because also if you're going to go into a career, if you're going to go into a degree, even if it's no money now, what's the debt you're taking? I've got a degree. It actually has served me. But I would say that at the time of undergoing the degree, I don't think I did that, I guess, level of due diligence that in hindsight I would have done and made a more objective decision. So I think that's something as well to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. For myself, I was able to find people at the different parishes that I was visiting to see who were in the field roughly or specifically that I was trying to go into, who were able to give me some mentorship. But then let's say you've checked all those boxes, you're playing you're taking steps to mitigate the dangers. You have a good goal towards the end. When you're there with your time in college, I think that it's a really interesting time period of life where you are trying to focus on completing your classes to get this degree, but that's pretty much it for the most part. You don't have you could be working like a side job while you're going to classes, whatever, but you have a lot of time to yourself as you don't have a family at this point, say you're 18, 19, 20, and you're able to go to the gym, help you get in shape, run, exercise, and you're able to go, say your daily rosary, do some spiritual reading. Like I know I would always try to get all of that in, at the library, in a quiet spot, and then do all my homework. So, take advantage of your time. You can also be reading about things in the field that you want to go into or doing stuff like that. But once you get a job and in the workforce and get married, all of that time disappears. And it's such a luxury if you are in college and you're dedicating that time to the degree, to use that other time, for your spiritual life, for your physical life, for, to maximize that value, because it is a cool time period.
Yeah, it is. I'd say as well, like in hindsight, because I'm married, right? I got 5
Mhm.
kids now, and I've kind of progressed in my career and stuff, and always trying to do that more. But like being real, when I was single, I was like, oh, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. When you get married, then you realize, oh my gosh, when I was single, I had so much time. Oh, I need more sleep. You didn't need more sleep. I'm surviving on way less sleep and actually kicking goals still. So you actually, I think when you're single, you actually, at least from my personal experience with myself, maybe others aren't like this, but you grossly underestimate how much more you can do. And I would also say that if, let's say, you do want to get married or you even want to have that option, if I was to take a step back, let's say when I was single, I was doing, I wasn't lazing about, to be clear. Like I was still doing stuff, but I reckon I would have, if I had gone, okay, can I be more intentional about this? Is there even a side business I can start, or can I even just do some work for free for someone to learn some stuff? Anything like that. Just, I guess, more activity. And also when you're young, by the way, and you don't even know what you want to do, you're really not that experienced yet. So you really can't bring that much value to the table. I'm sorry if you hear someone like online saying, get paid what you're worth, emphasis on what you're worth. If you actually don't know much, you're actually providing more of a cost to a business sometimes. It depends on the labor, but if you're wanting to learn something, it's actually more on a cost on them to train you. So I would even say do that work for free. The more you do when you've got more time when you're younger, the better it's going to serve you when the time comes where you go, I need to make money now. So that's another thing I would sort of add to that. If I, in hindsight, I would have been cranking way more when I was single and had more time.
One of my biggest regrets from the time period was just having access to the gym. And I would get there early some days because the traffic was awful. So I thought, well, I get there early, do some workout, and then go to class. Whenever I did that, that was pretty cool. But I just, as you get older, like resistance training, having, good form in doing that, to help with your longevity, and just quality of life, and avoiding aches and pains because you have some good resistance training. I wish that I would have gotten coaching or whatever if that was available to students, so that as I am now, if I go, I know good form for resistance training just for on my own, so that I can whether you're rehabbing from injuries or you're just, you know, trying to um, take care of the body, whatever. I wish that I would have taken advantage of that during that time period.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the same boat as you. Like basically every day that's like not a holiday of obligation or Sunday or the rare days like you're recovering from a flu or something, so you're at reduced capacity. But when you're like at full capacity, yeah, like the first thing I do is just a basic. Like one of the first things I do in the morning is a basic workout. Nothing too intense, but also you get a mental benefit. Like not only you keep yourself physically in shape, but you're starting the day off doing something that's unpleasant. So that means is that you've anchored yourself so that everything else that comes doesn't seem as hard. Whereas, if you sort of roll out of bed, like I remember when COVID first hit and I was like, this is amazing. I can sleep in and stuff, which was actually really bad. It wasn't as good mentally, the sleeping in, because you roll out of bed and everything feels hard because you had such a cruisy morning that I was like, this is not working. So I then flipped it and made my mornings strategically hard, and then something worked a lot easier. But I think that's another thing as well. Like just, I guess the benefit you get from doing that physical activity will help you make more money. I'm pretty sure they've got studies around that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. No one ever dies wishing they had less muscle mass for the most part. If you as you get older, dealing with falls, stuff like that, if you have weight trained or weight trained going up, that's something that really helps. I know Father Chikata was later in his life dealing with aches and pains, and he started resistance training, and it helped with all of his back and like got him back up and kicking. So yeah, definitely. Paul, do you have any more points to raise that you wanted to bring up since the last show? Not that comes to mind at least with regarding college. I mean, it's pretty concise. But yeah, did you want to transition into side businesses? Or
yeah, my transition to that. Yeah, so for those who have just tuned in, welcome. We were going to have Stephen Heine here, who is much more qualified to talk about business than I am, because he's actually, as I understand, run full-time businesses where I'm just doing a side business thing. So I can't really give insights in terms of running a business for your full-time thing. I think that would be a bit disingenuous. What I can do, though, is definitely talk about the benefits of starting a side business. When you do start a side business, and also, by the way, actually, I'll preface this. I might just preface this. I notice this sometimes. It annoys me. If you do work, say, full-time, or heck, if you just do anything, and you want to start a side business, actually maybe don't package it to yourself as a side business. Maybe package it to yourself as a project. Because when you're in employee world, this is the thing, right? You get a job offer. You basically sign 5 days a week of your life away, whatever the agreement is. So you've probably got this thing in your mind of taking on some sort of work equals massive commitment, like, doing it for a period of time. So what I see people doing is they start overthinking their side business or side project. And it's like, dude, you do realize that once you enter the side business world, you can literally start a side business, make 10 cold calls or 10 calls to your contacts that particular day to start some conversations. And in that same day, you can decide to close down your side business because all you do is stop calling people. It's not like where you have so much friction that, and you're going to sign your life away. This is a different game. And I think that if you can apply that mindset, you're going to move so much more quickly. I like to call it out because people can think, yes, I want to make the right business decision. You're not getting married. You're not going into 100K of debt for a degree. Like those decisions, put in a bit more thought, right? Like really, really put in the thought. With this, you can start a side project, maybe do a bit of Googling. Hey, that looks like a cool idea. Maybe do a comparison and then just start. Like seriously, like just start it. And don't think of it as a side business if you feel that overwhelms you. I've heard people, like one particular person who is a successful entrepreneur, say this is his advice. Everyone's got different approaches, but his advice is don't call it a business, call it a project, because it also takes off a bit less pressure. Also, your pride. Let's be real, everyone's got a bit of pride. If you think, oh, my business failed, you're like, oh, do I want to start and fail? By the way, no one cares except you. And also those who would judge you are just self-conscious because they don't have the guts to do things. Those who do have the guts respect the hustle, even if you fail. But if you just treat it as a project, then you can pretty much do whatever. So I think that's one thing I wouldn't mind clearing the air about, because I see so many people get stuck when others move so much more fast by just taking some action. Cool. Let's get into it. Stay in a side business, stay in a side project, whatever it is. So when you're in employee mindset, you're kind of, I guess, a wage slave, so to speak, which I still am. And by the way, there's a lot of benefits to it. But when you start when you start your own project, what you're essentially doing is you're creating a vehicle where you can just generate income that sits outside of your wage contract. You can make more sales, you can get more customers or get more jobs. And suddenly now you've got a vehicle that technically has uncapped potential. So what you're actually building is really more of like an asset. Now the thing is, when you're first getting started, there is this tendency to be like, I want to build something that's scalable. I want to do this. Look, the thing is, you're probably not, like, if this is your first shot at a business sort of thing, you're probably not that good. Like, you just start. I mean, I'm not that good. I'm better than I was 3 years ago, but I'm still not that good. So you probably want to approach this from a point of, what's something I can do that aligns with what I'm doing now? So let's say you've got a full-time job, and let's say it's actually doing well for you. Right now, that's your main vehicle of income. So you probably want to keep that. You probably don't want to compromise that unless there's some context. But general thumb, I'd say, is how can we can adapt this and slot this into your existing life instead of trying to change your life to suit your side business or your side project. So what's something that you can do that aligns with your potential or your financial situation, your risk? What I mean by that is, how much are you willing to invest in this business? Are you willing to invest in coaching programs? No, they're actually not a waste of time if you get the right ones. Some people might think that. That's not true. You can learn a lot, just like you can learn a lot from a degree. How much are you willing to invest? Can you invest anything? Is it just your time? What it is, figure out what those parameters are, and then go, cool, what's something that I can start? So an example might be, could be something like, hey, I'm into computers and stuff. Maybe I might try some digital marketing, learning some maybe automation build outs, website, whatever that is. You can look at that as an example. Or maybe you're like, no, I'm better with my hands. I hate computers. I don't want to touch a computer. It's just not my thing. So maybe could you do something like in remodeling, landscaping, lawns? Lawns is a great thing for a side business. Get a few clients, mow some lawns, and then something like that. And just remember, when you start, I'm going to reiterate, when you start a side project, you can close that down whenever you want. You can get a customer, you can deliver that lawn, you can mow that lawn, and then you can decide, I never want to do this again in my life. It's your business. You can do what you want. You're not going to let them down that much. They're going to find another lawnmower. So it's like, that's how it works. So I really would say to people, if you've got an idea and you've weighed up a few options and stuff, treat it as a project. Just go for it, knowing that you can literally open it, like you can start it and close it on the same day if you wanted to. And you might find so much information, by the way, and like learn so much more about your business idea by just doing things than sitting there researching, asking AI and all this stuff. So that's, I think, some points there. Now, here's one thing I would say, and I would say personally, I feel like by starting my side business, it's actually helped me do better in my day job. I actually think it's helped me make more money even from my day job. So let me explain this for a bit. Every business operates to really drive revenue, to drive profit, right? Every business has income and also expenses. So every business has to make commercial decisions and has to operate commercially. When you start your own side business, even if it's making a tiny bit of money, and you're suddenly looking at you're suddenly realizing, okay, I've got income that I've got to take into account. I've got expenses. How do I do this? What actually drives value? Like, what activities actually drive value to my project? And what of those are actually just a waste of time? Maybe this is really good. This is really good if you start a side business. If you start hiring people, even like contractors, you will figure out certain approaches up to you. It's because you're like essentially the manager that drive value. And those are just really annoying. and just kind of a time drain. So that means that when you as an employee, you can empathize because you've been in, I guess, in your manager's situation, or and up the chain, you can realize, okay, I've had contractors approach things this way to me or not deliver on time, whatever it is, and that hurt revenue or that was really painful. I'm not going to do that. But also, when I had this contractor who was exceptional and he did X, Y, Z, and that actually helped drive revenue, it helped us deliver the thing for the client, it helped us make money. It also made my life easier. It didn't make me, it was a good experience. You've now got a blueprint and some ideas on how you can approach that in your day job. And then when you realize, you get that awareness of what actually drives value up the chain and also for the business, and you start becoming someone in your day job who's clearly commercially savvy, you, or at least I found, will become a much better performer, and you're going to open up opportunities to make more income even in your day job, if that's the vehicle you stay in. So that's, I guess, the initial probably big selling points I would say for starting a side business or side project, because we don't want to treat it as like it's a big thing. It's a business, no side project. But Paul, did you have anything to add or any questions as well? Any comments on that?
Not much to add from personal experience. A lot of echoing the same observations. There is a lot of skills to be gained just from learning, and it is a big iterative process for sure of trying stuff and reiterating upon it, whether you succeeded or failed, and getting a lot of feedback. Something I guess I could ask, at least in America, for Americans, there isn't or there hasn't been as much as it's almost as if you start your own business or your own side hustle, it's something that a lot of people don't do. So it's perceived as, not, it could be strange depending on who's looking at it or what the business is. Or it's just not the normal. Whereas I know, like, I've talked with like immigrants, a lot of people from the Middle East, India, Nepal, stuff like that. It seems like a lot of other cultures, it's way more normal. I know, I have some friends who came from Iraq, who all of the men are, own their own business or do something like that. And like one of them works for PNC Bank. He makes good money as like an IT worker, but he just gets made fun of for, working. So for someone else, it's just like, I don't know, what is like the culture of side hustles and businesses in Australia?
Yeah, look, I'd probably say the same to what you mentioned about America. I'd say it's more rare. People do it, but I'd still say it's more rare. But just also, you also know, here's what I would say. Do you know what normal is? Broke or close to broke.
Well,
so we don't want to
yeah.
optimize for normal. Just to be clear on that. Like, if you actually want to do well, you don't want to optimize for normal, because if you look at the average income of households, it's actually not that much if you want to start a family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the way it is. Like, and there's nothing against people who aren't making this much money. I don't believe that defines you as a person. But if your goals are similar to, let's say, Paul's and mine, where we have families, we want to do well for our families and also give to the church and all that good stuff, we have to be not optimized for normal. It's the non-normal people that are doing it properly that are actually making so much more money, not because they're evil, not because they're cheating business, etc., because they do things a bit differently, and probably because they're good at what they do. That's another thing. So I would say, yes, there's always a side business culture. There's people who do it, and there are a lot of Aussies that do it, by the way. But I would just say probably it's not the norm. I would say most people would probably kind of just do their own thing. there's also a level of uncomfortability of starting your own business. And I think that's actually that's really one of the biggest learning opportunities there. It's essentially putting your ego on the line, because if you work for a company that's saying it fails or things like go well, you can blame the manager, you can blame the CEO for the strategic decisions. If you start your own thing and you fail, hey, that means you just couldn't do it well yet. Like, it's just the way it is. And I think that's another thing, I think, mentally, that people can kind of have that hurdle. But here's the way I would look at that is, one, cool, you've learned something from it. And two, those who never try because they're too scared, you're already well ahead of them. So if you just keep taking that further, you're going to do much better.
Yeah. Just bringing up the culture point observation to emphasize how important it is for us in our cultures. We don't have the cultural support behind us. So it's way more important to educate ourselves if we are starting these projects through people who have done it successfully. Hopefully, that, in our personal life, if we have that opportunity, or if you're able to manufacture that opportunity through social media like LinkedIn and talking to people who have done it, or whether it's books or YouTube videos, podcasts from successful entrepreneurs in the area that you are interested in, stuff like that. I think that's way more important to just knowing that you can do it. Here's how people have done it. And then at the end of the day, all you need is a bank account. You just need to go to the bank and say, here's the name of my business. Then you need to get an LLC document. You can do all of that in a Saturday. And then now you just need to convince people to give you money for goods and services.
Yeah. Or if you're doing something where you're basically doing like home service stuff, you probably don't even need to get an LLC. You can just say, give me cash, at least in starting. So yeah, it's actually so true. I don't know if I was going to say something else, but no, I'll leave it to you, Paul, if you have more to say.
Yeah, what I have to say is I'm really hoping Steven Heiner comes at the last second. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think he's coming. I reckon something's probably happened. He hasn't seen my message. So we'll probably, for the audience though, we'll probably actually do another one with Steven Heiner. But yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of handicaps to doing side businesses now, whether it's Uber or Lyft. There's a lot of services, or you can go on something like Fiverr, where you can create a service and then market yourself to do that service. Or there's something called Field Nation, where people put up like quests or jobs, and they need someone to do it, whether, and they need to go do an IT thing or help install, monitors at a Burger King. I don't know, whatever. And you can pick those up, and you would be representing yourself, as a LLC or sole proprietorship, whatever. But it can give you the experience of doing a side project on Rails, so that you can then launch on your own, if that's your goal too.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's so much opportunity. There's so many things people need help with. And I'd say as well, like, I know I keep reiterating this, but let's say, there's an opportunity to do a gig connecting monitors, you know how to do it. Sometimes people could be like, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? It's like, you can take one gig and go. So as an example, I haven't done it in a while, but I've done a bit of DoorDash delivering food, and I'm set up in the app. So if I ever go, oh my goodness, I, for whatever reason, need to make a couple $100 this week extra, because I'm set up in the system, I can just go cool and start doing shifts. Haven't done it in ages, but that was actually one of my first things that kind of, I guess it was, like you said, a handicap, or at least an entry level into business. That was one of my first experiences where I was like, oh, let me just try this thing. Did a bit one night, a couple of nights, and got paid the next week, and thought, oh, it is actually possible to make more money outside of the day job while still doing the day job, then it was like, what is this?
Yeah.
So I actually would say maybe for people, that's a great idea to start something like that where it's just so low friction. You can just, you don't, it's so flexible, and then just start, I guess, experiencing what that's like. And then when you, I guess, you experience it, you can go, cool, that's, I guess, one element, and then you realize as well in the side business, well, like I mentioned before, it's not like accepting a day job where you've got all this commitment and all this kind of stuff. You literally can do something, learn from it, and decide, do I want to keep doing it for a little bit longer? You can just be so, in the beginning, you've got no real commitment because you're just trying things, and you can do that as much as you want. You're probably not going to scale a business that way, but the point is, if you haven't actually got any business experience, you're not ready. You're not even close to ready to scale a business. I can tell you that from personal experience. So don't even think about it. It's like and I've done this before, reading books on how to invest in commercial real estate and make yields. So I don't even have like 10% of the money required to invest in commercial real estate.
Oh,
so
you can't do that in Australia.
You need you can, but you need a lot of money. So like that's what people can kind of go to that next step. It's like, dudes, just do something in the beginning. It's okay. You'll learn more from doing stuff.
Do you want to go to some bro history of jobs?
What's this?
Bro history just means just us talking about history.
Yeah.
So like the history of, working for yourself versus for an employer.
Oh yeah, as in me as doing the side business stuff. Get the differences.
No, I'm talking about like humanity, like how were jobs and careers in the 1900s, 1800s, stuff like that. Like talk about.
Go for it. Yeah, fill it up with content. Stephen Heiner's not here, so we're going to try to fill this up. So I think it's great. Kick it up.
When you're looking at the history of mankind and jobs, it's interesting. There's always been an ideal, and then there's always been a what are we actually working with our situation. You can go back to Adam and Eve and caring for the plants in the Garden of Eden, and then you can go to Noah. Farming. Farming has always been, considered by the church, if not just the most noble occupation, but it's also really difficult to do nowadays, at least because there's so much scale that's destroying people who are trying to farm by themselves commercially, and then you can see something that I wish I could expand more on for this is like guilds and how they worked. Because as my understanding, it was you were pretty much working for yourself, but you were also in the guild, and the guild protected you from other people, but you also, worked with the guild. So, a lot of the world was agricultural until at least the 1950s, at least the Western world, and still is. So there was an aspect of working for yourself. And then we know in America, after the Industrial Revolution, the public school education system was set up for us to be these good employees, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just that's how it is. So, you can be a good employee, and that's part of the reason why it's weird to try to do your own business, because culturally we got messed up. From the French Revolution to the Industrial Revolution to the quantum evolution, whatever is coming. So I don't know, what do you have to reciprocate back from that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I have heard as well that this whole employee thing is actually a new way of doing things compared to the past. So I guess that's another thing to keep in mind, is that, if it's always, I guess, being more performance based, i.e., that this farmer needs a hand doing X, Y, Z, and then this farmer needs a hand as well. Maybe people kind of being their own business without even realizing it, because it was just called living and making money. I don't really know too much about the history and stuff, but I think it's really good to at least highlight or understand that it's culturally new, I guess, to be just I'm just working for one employer, and that's it. Like that's a relatively new thing. And if you also think about it, if you think about it for a second, you probably, or anyone who's kind of read about investing, you want to diversify your portfolio. You want to make sure that if this investment crashes, this investment goes up. If you just have one employer, you've actually got the worst risk portfolio ever. Because if you get made redundant, the business goes down or whatever, you got to go out and find another job. Now, the fact is, if you've been good in your job, you're probably going to find another job. So you can offset that risk by just being good and then being proactive and stuff like that. So that is true. But if you think about it, like this is another reason I've started a side business is I like to have a vehicle. So let's say I do get made redundant. It could be this year. It might not. I could be in the same company for another 5 or 10 years, but I could get made redundant in 10 years. And it does happen, by the way, especially with these bigger corporations, which if you can get in there and learn a lot and leverage the fact that they've got massive amounts of money. So it's not like a small business where they're constantly having to make these cuts. Like it's awesome. Like there's actually a real benefit from big corporations as an employee. If you know how to play the game and do it well, there's a huge benefit that you can actually cash in on. But the fact is that they sometimes get new leadership because the board and the investors are like, dudes, have you seen our finances for the last 3 years? We got to change things. So then they go, okay, we need to make structural changes. And even if you're really good at what you do, because there's this high level strategic levers that are being pulled, you can be made redundant irrespective of how good you are. And it's just what the business has to do. And that's just the way it is. There should be no hard feelings about it. It's just the way it is. So I guess having some sort of vehicle where even if it's maybe not doing amazing, I guess let me put it this way. Situation one, only having a day job. Doing well. But if I get made redundant, if I try to start a business, I've got no experience. I've got no brand at all. I've got no past work. I'm really starting from scratch. So either I start a business from scratch and or get a new job. Alternative is I've got a day job. I'm doing extremely well in that day job. I'm making sure that I am overperforming or at least trying to overperform. And then I've also got a side business, which I'm working on so that if I ever get made redundant, instead of me having nothing to start from scratch from, I can go, cool. What work have I delivered on that side business? What clients do I have? What brand have I sort of built? So now what I can do is I've got more options. I can go, do I have enough cash now that I can literally just go, why don't we just try to push the side business full time? You will make so much more traction if you've got foundations because you've been doing it for a couple of years compared to starting from scratch. You'll have reviews, you have case studies, you have existing contacts, you'll have a bit of your own personal confidence. Hey, I've been doing this. Like I know how to build a website. I know how to run an email campaign. I know how to get you opportunities for your business because I've done it before. Not as much as the guys doing it full time, but I've done it before. So I've got a much better starting point. So I guess I think people have a tendency to really be reactive, and this is myself included. We don't really think about this potential. Everything's happening. Well, everything's all gravy right now. We're making money. It's a full-time job. But what if something changes? And redundancies happen all the time. It just happens all the time. So I guess for you and your risk profile, you need to really think about this. What's more risky to you? Or what's more risky? Not having a side business or having a side business? Now, it depends what it is. So if your employer will feel really negatively about it, maybe it's a different situation. What I did, in case this helps for people, is I made sure that I got my manager's written consent to start the side business. Now, Australia, one thing Australia is kind of good at, we're a bit more socialist than America. We do have pretty good employee rights, I would say. So I don't actually think, I could be wrong on this, but I don't actually think legally a corporation can say you can't do your own side business. They only could say if it's conflicting with what you're delivering for your job. So my view is just do a really good job and be that guy at work who does a really good job, so that when you ask for that permission, or I guess that you don't even need the permission, but I wanted to have it there so no one could ever say you've got a side business. What's going on here? It's like, yeah, my manager's got written consent. She's represented the company, and it says that it's fine. So go away. I've never had any issues, but just to give you that personal confidence. So that's another thing you can sort of navigate. But yeah, there's sort of some thoughts there, I guess.
Who are some type of entrepreneurs that you look up to, at least as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, good question. So I've got to be really careful because just like anyone can kind of put content out there that maybe
I'm saying like really as an entrepreneur, you know, at like getting a job, create or delivering goods and services to people, whether innovating. I'm not, obviously asterisks,
Yeah, the asterisk sort of thing. I'd say, look, there's a fair few people out there, honestly, if you sort of look around. And also you can find, like, if you sort of get into I guess the business online LinkedIn world or whatever, you'll also find people that maybe aren't as famous, but you'll find out, oh my gosh, this person's got a business that looks like they're doing really, really well. And they might not build a massive business yet. Like as an example, there's a guy in Australia who I saw one of his Facebook ads, and he does is he runs advertising campaigns for tradies, so like contractors, and he's got he's got proven results. Like he's helped them generate hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue. And, I've even spoken with him and had a bit of a chat on email and stuff. And you can kind of, I guess, learn from those insights. Got a bit of advice from him as well. So I'd say that there's so many out there that you could find. What I'd also say actually on that as well is when you get into the businessy sort of world, you'll also find entrepreneurs that you don't vibe with. There are definitely some that I would say stretch the truth a little bit in their marketing, or they're a little bit, it just feels a bit disingenuous. But the cool thing is there's so many out there that you'll find people who you vibe with, and you also find people who I guess you don't vibe with. And then they're the ones where you go, cool. Those business owners, those entrepreneurs online I see, and the way they're behaving just doesn't gel with me. Amazing. You know what not to do when you're operating your business. And I guess there's some things to consider there.
What about books that you've read for entrepreneurship or personal finance, or something like an overlap there? What do you can you speak to any of that resonate with you?
Yeah, I have read a fair bit on stuff, and everything's going to, I guess, resonate with people differently based on where they're at, based on their challenges and stuff. Disclaimer, if I mention a book and it might have something, I don't know if it's got something indecent or not, just always like to give that disclaimer. But one book that did have a very positive impact on me at the time when I was just starting side business stuff was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And I think I've talked about it actually on a live stream before with Stephen Heiner. The idea behind it is that even small improvements to your life, like small actions, will actually have a compound effect in the big run. So I'll give you, I guess, let's kind of make this real. There's a temptation, and I've fallen into it as well, where it's like, what's the point of doing 10 push-ups? That's only 10 push-ups. Unless it's like 100 push-ups, or I'm going to do, what's the point of doing a small workout? Shouldn't I just do a 45-minute workout or nothing? So it's like, the or nothing thing. So even like small things, or maybe you're playing too many video games and you're having too much inaction. So how about, maybe before I fire up my video game tonight, why don't I do 5 minutes of reading a business book or watching YouTube content? What if I do 2 minutes? What if I read 1 page? When you start doing that, if you think about it, by the way, 1 page times 7 days, let's say 5. 1 page times 5 days, that's 5 pages a week, 20 pages a month. Now, what's really going to happen is you're going to start, here's the logic as well, by the way. When you start something, you realize it's so much easier than it actually is. Context. Some things aren't, but in general, like, let's just say, or to continue doing it. Let's say reading a book. If you start reading a book and it's speaking to you, you read that 1 page, you're like, oh, that's cool. Read a second page, oh, that's cool. Then before you know it, you maybe read half an hour that night because you're like, this is amazing. And suddenly you're a reader. And readers, as I understand, also make more money. Like, they just learn more. They can do more with that. So Yeah, there's one guy, he's another Catholic. He does content and stuff. He kind of influenced me to get into the businessy sort of world. And his thing he would just say is, if you're not a reader, become a reader. And it's like actually so true. So, I mean, some people obviously can't read as well because they didn't get educated or whatever it is as well. Totally fine. There's audiobooks, there's YouTubes. The point is, it's not becoming a reader per se. It's more about become someone who learns information from others. That's really what we're saying here. And if you can read and you can and you can read fast, reading accelerates that as well. So definitely The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I'm just looking at my bookshelf as well. I mean, there's others and there's always tactical sort of things, but that's probably the biggest one. But Stephen Heine will be able to share ones as well that are excellent.
Yeah. For myself, it's just like the nothing out of the ordinary, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Richest Man in Babylon. That one was pretty interesting. Atomic Habits.
Oh yeah, I haven't read the Babylon thing. I forgot what you said.
Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah, okay. I have to look into that.
That one
Rich Dad,
was
Poor Dad is good too.
Robert Kiyosaki mentioned it in Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
And it was basically like talking about who was the king of Babylon, who was like insanely rich. But it was just talking about like it was contrasting the middle class and like the wealthy merchants versus the slaves in Babylon. And it was the way that I understood it was like the slaves it was almost like they let themselves fall into a point of destitute that they had to work. And it wasn't necessarily that they got conquered and it was just that they needed to just have like a job, and they were just like, it was almost like an indentured servitude. And people who, got their life in order and like started working well would get out, and they could go, like they could essentially buy their freedom from their labor. And I think I remember the phrase, laziness is proper to slaves or something like that.
I mean, it sounds like those people, I mean, let's be real. Most, like, this is just being real, but probably most people who are kind of on like a minimum wage sort of thing for like 10 plus years of their life, there's probably something they're just not pushing themselves with. Maybe they
there's something, but I mean, you can see Christ in the poor, and there's like a lot of people.
So to be clear, I don't have anything against people like that, but I think what I'm saying, Paul, you could even see Christ in the slaves there, as you mentioned. I don't think there's anything, but I think it's more the concept. Even if and maybe it could be a knowledge thing. It could even be just a knowledge thing, and all that. But from the sounds of things, it almost sounds like I can see a correlation between those who are kind of stayed as slaves by not doing the same behaviors. I could see that kind of correlating to things in our life.
Then it also talked about how, with various investment opportunities would come up in people's lives, and just having the wisdom on knowing which to do and which to not, like, for example, it was like an uncle said, "Hey, I'm going to go on this trip to Venice with my merchant boat. Like, do you want to get in on this?" And like, you're like, "Oh, this is awesome. We're going to make such a big return." And then the ship gets wrecked or something like that. Whereas I know I don't, that was one thing that I kind of remember. Maybe it wasn't the exact thing, but it was just kind of like the idea that investment opportunities will present themselves. And you have to know the person. If this is coming from a person who you wouldn't trust with money, then don't give them money. But there'll be ones that come, and you have to take the opportunity when it comes.
Oh yeah, and also I think as well on that's an interesting topic. But like, don't be afraid to make an investment decision that won't get a return. In fact, I would even say this is probably this is my risk profile. Is that if there's an investment decision, so it could be a coaching program, it could be a business thing, it could be whatever. Do I do paid advertising campaign, whatever it is? There's all these little things that count as investments. I look at worst case. If this doesn't work, am I happy? Like, can I live with that? And if the answer is yes, then I'll do it. If the answer is no, then I'm probably going to go, well, probably not. So I think it's also kind of, so what if it's like, cool, I'm happy to invest in this merchant guy, but it's not my life savings. I might lose a small amount, but if I lose that, I can live. If I gain a return, amazing. So I think as well, like, don't be afraid to make investment decisions that won't work. Just make sure that if it doesn't work, it's not going to cause a lot of stress to yourself. And you can be like, yeah, cool. And the mistake I made in that investment is I didn't consider X, Y, Z. This is what went wrong, which means my next investment decision, I'm probably going to make a smarter decision. And if you stuff that one up, cool. What went wrong with that one? I made sure that I prepared for worst case. So what it does mean is when the really good investment opportunities come and you can spot them, I guess you know how to do them properly, like to capitalize on it, as well as maybe little tweaks to make. So I think as well, we shouldn't be too scared of failure. We just have to be prepared for the failure and make sure that we're happy to take that on.
Yeah, risk management for sure.
Yeah, risk management is a thing for someone who finds it boring, but I can tell you with good risk management, you have more confidence to be aggressive with things. If you know how aggressive you can be, then yeah, and it's just really good. So I think that's even another thing for people to consider. If you're looking at a side business opportunity or something, take into account your personal risk profile and then go, what's worst case if I do this? Can I accept that? I don't know about you, Paul, but I have a tendency, I've found recently that, like, because there's so much, like, I know you're probably the same thing, but like every week, every day, between day job, family, side business, whatever it is, there's just so much going on that you can kind of get a bit nervous about things and, what about this, what about that? And I found really helpful that if I'm like feeling nervous about something, like, scared or whatever, I've been writing out, okay, what this thing that's going to happen, what's the best case? What's the more likely case? But also what's the worst case? And then when I do that, you feel more comfortable because you're like, cool. The worst case from this is I have to give a $900 refund. Can I live with that? Actually, yeah. Like, I can. I wouldn't like it, but I can live with that. And then when you face the reality where it's like, yeah, that's not going to kill me, that's cool. So I think that's another thing that people could sort of use as a tool if you're, I guess, feeling a bit overwhelmed about starting your own project. Maybe just do this. Okay, if I do this thing, what's the best case? Make a lot of money. What's the most likely case? Maybe make some money. What's the worst case? Okay, well, maybe it is if you're just doing labor, you lost a bit of your time. Or if you put in some money, I lost 2K. Maybe I did a 2K ad campaign because I can afford that, but I can lose that, whatever it is you're doing. Probably don't run paid ads, by the way, if you've never done business before, because there's more to say than advertising. But that's sort of an example. My mouse just went slow, but I fixed it. So Paul, I don't know if there's anything else to add. I think we're getting to the close. We haven't had as many questions this time round, but to be fair, the timing is also, I think usually we do these earlier, which I think is actually more appropriate. Like, it's easier for people in the US, so it could also be that. But people do like to leave comments sometimes afterwards, so that's cool. But Paul, do you have anything else to add before we wrap this thing up and make fun of Stephen Pineapple?
Australia is not carrying the viewership.
Yeah.
The Australian trads.
Yeah. To be fair as well. Saturday morning as well. People are probably busy on a Saturday morning. It's not the best time, but that's okay. Look, good. Thank goodness YouTube publishes it so people can watch it afterwards.
Yeah, we'd thanks for having me. Definitely enjoyed the conversation, and hopefully, people who are considering going to college, can feel free to reach out to either of us if you want, some questions or some advice. It's clear up some concerns or help temper your expectations. I don't know, and then hopefully, if someone is considering starting a side business, they can just realize you just got to do it and reiterate on it. And if you can't do that, put yourself in a situation where you have connections or friends who are already doing it, and that will help you realize you got to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. And I think the thing I like to just end on as well is kind of think about, I guess, have a bit more, what I've learned I've had to do is have a bit more long-term thinking without, becoming a worrywart. But really going, am I positioning myself? Am I positioning my ability to generate income the best in my current situation? If not, what more can I do? And then can I make sure I can do that in a way that doesn't, I guess, detract from what I'm already doing, or like as in a day job as an example, or you're willing to take on that risk. So everyone's got a different situation. But even if you just come away from this and just start thinking about that, even if you're 18 years old, maybe you're 25 years old, heck, maybe you're 40 years old. There's been people who started businesses at like 55 years old, like, and then make lots of money. So like, and it's not all about making lots of money, but that's the measure, I guess, of success in the endeavor. So that's why we care about it, just like anything you would do. So I think the biggest thing I would probably say is, think about, am I positioning myself the best for the future? And is there anything that I can be doing or I should be doing that would actually help with that? I think that's the thing I like to close on. So thank you, Paul. Thank you for joining. To those who have watched, thank you very much. To those who will watch, I hope you enjoy this. And I think next time, I think Stephen Heine was not available. But next time, if we can get him on, he can actually give some real deal experience from entrepreneurship, not from a side business perspective, but from an actual, I've built and run businesses full-time perspective. So I think that'll be really useful. Thanks again, Paul, and thank you to the audience.
No problem. Bye-bye.